White Lightning. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, I was just asking if you were with a professional film crew, or if you had been in contact with anyone from our marketing department by chance.
Our marketing department? Who are we?
The Museum of Pop Culture.
Oh, you mean that thing my tax dollars support? You mean this sidewalk which my tax dollars support? Look, man, I'm not a pro crew with 3 or more people. I'm not swinging a 900-pound boom camera and a 400-pound boom mic.
Yeah.
So you coming out here in your generic blue hoodie doesn't impress me. You should be wearing an ID if you're going to be harassing us common citizens.
I was just making sure you're okay.
Who are you, by the way?
My name's Jake.
Jake, and what is your job title?
I am the day shift supervisor.
Ah. And what's your last name, Jake?
Thompson.
And what is this place called now?
The Museum of Pop Culture.
Yeah. MoPOP. And they dropped the sci-fi thing?
Well, there's still a science fiction section. But it's not in the title. Yeah, it's just kind of all-encompassing.
It's still a rock and roll thing, right?
Yeah.
You still got that whole room with guitars?
Yeah, we have the Sound Lab, there's a Jimi Hendrix gallery, there's a Nirvana exhibit.
But you got that gallery of guitars, though?
Yeah, there's still a guitar gallery.
And they're all white guys, too, right? Is T-Bone Walker mentioned? Not when I was here. T-Bone Walker was the first and the best. He was on the level of Jimi Hendrix. T-Bone Walker?
I guess I'm not familiar enough with my history.
I guess not. Yeah, well, you never know what happened. That's why I love to sing. It's T-Bone Walker.
I'm gonna go look him up after you mentioned it.
You never know what might happen.
Well,
that's why I love to sing. Yeah, you're not going to try to stop me from singing out here, are you?
Absolutely not.
Good.
You're right to sing. I was just making sure you were cool. Carry on. Have fun.
Permit? Are you aware that you need a permit to stand on the sidewalk and talk into a camera? Every person that comes by here with a cell phone, we tell them the same thing. You're going to talk into that microphone. Where's your permit, man? And yeah, I don't believe the gallery of guitars has more than 1 or 2 non-white fellers in it, and T-Bone is neglected. And it's not, I mean, they wouldn't need to own his guitar in order to move forward with it, with a little display. You never know what might happen. That's why I love to sing. I'm rocking my Blues Brothers dollar store specs, and I get dissed like this in my own hometown. Not my original hometown, of course. But anyway, we're doing stopwatch today. Avoid any possible errors of any kind. And coming to you on tape, literally on tape, high 8, and up here in a digital format. It's October 4th, 2022. The day the music died for Janis Joplin fans in 1970. We've been trying to get this monologue together for quite some time. And finally now the sun, finally we're getting hazy sunlight, but the sun is over yonder, so no big help to me. And as you may have heard from the guy there, we're in front of the MoPOP, and this used to be the, the Pale Alien and Frank Gehry Vanity Project. We're on the gold tone side of it. The elephant butt is on the other side. Mr. Gehry did not take kindly on opening day when I discussed the elephant butt concept to him, but it must have been painfully obvious that that's what people were saying. Elephant butt. In fact, I think this monorail train goes right up the elephant butt. An architect is supposed to take into consideration these sorts of symbolic representations. I like his buildings, actually. You know, the photos of the other ones I've seen, all except for this thing. It's just, it's supposed to be a smashed up guitar maybe, but it really isn't. And I obviously missed the point in so many ways. But it's 2022, October 4th. It is a coincidence. I just saw on a documentary channel this morning that it is it's the anniversary of the birth of Dick Tracy in 1931, I think, the Dick Tracy comic strip, which sort of gave rise to the Batman thing several years later. And then in 1970, sadly, the death date of Janis Joplin. Dead in a hotel room. If you ever look through those lists of famous last words, the best one goes to playwright Eugene O'Neill. You can sing it along with me if you know the words. Born in a hotel room, God damn it, died in a hotel room. I think he's the all-time winner. For us theatrical types, anyway. And Janis's, reputation has increased in recent years due to a book by an author who went through her old tapes and helped to solidify her reputation as a in-studio perfectionist. And being an in-studio perfectionist is what so many of these artists are and were. And I think her scholarship and access to those tapes helped to prove that in the case of Janis Joplin. And Jimi Hendrix, his death date was same year, 1970, but September 18th. We were going to do this monologue on that date. But we got, delayed, mostly delayed by perfectionism, quite frankly. This is what we're rocking today, which is a big stack of documents with little lawyerly post-it slips. So this is both reportage and a bold experiment in extemporaneous composition, which many times we've done, but we haven't really done the extensive post-it note thing. And, we have not done one of these hours. We've been shooting tape over the years for later reconfiguration, but we haven't done one of these hours since 2019, and at that point, it was just a Cobain-focused program, and so we've never really gotten around to commenting on the demise of this guitar slinging singer, Chris Cornell, Seattle native, born in Seattle, and according to those of his admirers, a crooner extraordinaire. And he had a good voice, and some of those compositions, the ones, I am not your rolling wheels, I am the highway. That's the one they quote here. This is authorized by the widow, Mr. Cornell's widow, and we'll be discussing her momentarily. And so since we haven't discussed this, we're just going to run through, we're going to be perfectly frank, the Wikipedia page, which I think is fairly precise and to the point on a number of key points that you're just not going to pick up in a number of media, or you could say in any media, which is that, for instance, this sculptural media here, they're giving the impression that he's a guitar hero above and beyond all else, and a completely straight ahead righteous dude, but officially he's a suicide. Not exactly the idol of youth, not exactly a good role model. So as I contend, just to get to the point on this, the reason they can construct this thing is nobody actually believes. I mean, I believe in the majority. Anybody walking by here would believe, if they know any of the details, nah, big rock star, just did a fabulous show in Detroit Rock City. Why would he kill himself an hour later? Does not add up. On the other hand, Detroit Rock City is also, for decades now, Detroit Murder City. And the idea that the Homicide Squad is going to devote hundreds or thousands of hours to conceiving some sort of prosecution in this case is a little far-fetched. It was presented to them as a suicide, and, around 12:15 a.m. on May 18th, 2017, Cornell's bodyguard found him unconscious in the bathroom of his hotel room, 1136, at the MGM Grand in Detroit, Michigan, after performing at a show with Soundgarden at the Fox Theater on May 17th. Is that actually accurate? Did he perform with Soundgarden? I thought that stands correcting, perhaps. He was lying on the floor with an exercise band around his neck and blood in his mouth, and MGM medic and EMS personnel were unable to revive Cornell. Cornell was pronounced dead by a doctor at 1:30 a.m. at the age of 52. The cause of death was officially ruled a suicide by hanging. Police ruled out foul play by reviewing a hotel surveillance video which showed nobody entering or exiting the suite after Cornell's bodyguard left around 11:35 p.m. So that's one of those little details they can throw in there to sort of convince you that, the police even examined surveillance video, due diligence. And the fact that there was a bodyguard involved seems to erase any doubts of any foul play, right? The bodyguard is, from what I recall, I haven't looked at this recently, but kind of an attention-seeking former featured player in a reality series with a top model. On June 2nd, 2017, the Wayne County Medical Examiner released its autopsy and toxicology report in the death of Cornell. The medical examiner confirmed that the cause of death was hanging, and the manner of death was ruled as a suicide, adding that Cornell's injuries were all, quote, consistent with hanging, partially suspended by the resistance exercise band, and that, quote, drugs did not contribute to the cause of death. Only prescription medications in therapeutic doses were found in Cornell's system. The sedative buta, we'll abbreviate that as butabitol, commonly prescribed for the treatment of headache. 4 doses of anti-anxiety medication lorazepam, also known as Ativan, the decongestant pseudoephedrine, and its metabolites. Also caffeine from no-dose tablets Cornell had ingested, and naloxone, which was administered by emergency technicians. No pills were found in Cornell's stomach. Cornell's widow stated that the Ativan was prescribed for him in 2016 as a sleep aid. Photos from Cornell's hotel room showed that his prescription for Ativan was, quote, 1 tablet every 12 hours. Cornell's widow contacted insurance lawyer Kirk Pazich within a few minutes after her husband's death. Pazich became the spokesperson for the widow and blamed Ativan for the singer's death, stating that Cornell would not intentionally take his own life. Cornell's widow said, quote, when we spoke after the show, I noticed that he was slurring his words. He was different. When he told me he may have taken an extra Ativan or 2, I contacted security and asked that they check on him. End quote. Following the release of the autopsy and toxicology report, Cornell's widow released a statement to the press. Many of us who know Chris well noticed that he wasn't himself during his final hours and that something was very off. We have learned from this report that several substances were found in his system. After so many years of sobriety, this moment of terrible judgment seems to have completely impaired and altered his state of mind. Something clearly went terribly wrong, and my children and I are heartbroken. And there you have, to get to the point very directly, the widow apparently misrepresenting really what was reported. Several substances were found in his system leads one to believe that was the essential problem. And she doesn't say that, she says that this was a moment of terrible judgment which completely impaired and altered his state of mind, which seems like an absolute refutation of any theory that anyone might develop that this was a murder thing or some sort of misrepresentation of facts by the police. So in one fell swoop, in 100 words or so, the widow was able to clear up any lingering doubts about foul play or police incompetence. So, case closed, right? And that is one thing you can really take away from these cases, of which there are so many in recent decades. If you've got a widow who's willing to look for the bottom line, as obviously Miss Cornell getting online with insurance lawyer within a few minutes after hearing of her husband's death, that's quite a bottom line approach to dealing with this. If you've got a compliant widow who's looking at the bottom line, which is going to involve millions of dollars in a rock star death, even exclusive of any lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies or anyone else, and you've got someone on site, whether it's a bodyguard or anyone else, just about anything is possible, including obviously the really unlikely scenario that a guy does what apparently is a successful presentation to a very appreciative crowd in a theater-like setting, a large theater-like setting in Detroit, and then popping off to the MGM Hotel a few blocks away, and literally minutes later, within the hour, ending it all. How terribly unlikely that does seem. And the main focus of what we're talking about here today is going to be Mr. David Grohl of Los Angeles, California, born in Ohio, and we'll get to his fuller biography in a few minutes. But as not only the nation's but sort of the global representative of rock and roll mental health advocacy, Mr. Grohl was called upon to make comments on at least one occasion on video, and sitting basically shoulder to shoulder in an interview segment with Rock FM Australia. Grohl offered these non-experts, certainly not a certified expert, but from personal experience, perhaps an expert, in any case, these words of wisdom and advice. When it comes to Chris Cornell, or Chester, meaning Bennington, who similarly killed himself officially 2 months later, those two were very close, Cornell and Chester Bennington. Depression is a disease, and everybody kind of goes through it in their own way. And Chris was such a beautiful guy, man. He was the sweetest person, and he was so talented. He had so much to offer that it was a real shock to hear that he had gone. But I think that, mental health and depression is something that people should really take seriously, and there's a stigma attached to it that's unfortunate. So, rather skillfully explained out there to anyone who's curious to get his commentary on these issues. Like almost every word issuing forth from Mr. David Grohl's oral cavity reads and sounds just like a publicist had authored every single word. And to what extent he has that talent, and to what extent he actually employs publicists to write every word is a question that I could not possibly answer. It's all pretty seamless, as you'll see as our exposition here is revealed to you in full. And of course, the reason we are jumping right into the subject of Mr. Grohl is that he is the primary focus of what we're discussing today, and most specifically, what really did happen in the Four Seasons Hotel in Bogota, Colombia on March 25th, 6 months ago, 6 months plus about 10 days. And how is it that this global mourner-in-chief for the rock and roll crowd, Mr. David Grohl, handled the whole thing? And so many others have handled the whole thing in terms of their expressions of grief and their expressions of let's party on, because that's what the decedent would have wanted. And the day after the death of his longtime drummer of 25 years, Mr. Taylor Hawkins of Los Angeles County, born in San Antonio actually. The day after, March 26th, the Colombian police issued this statement. Colombian police believe the death of Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins was drug-related. Although officially, that's not precisely correct. That's a headline I'm reading. The 50-year-old musician was found dead in a hotel room at the Casa Medina in Bogota on Friday, March 25th. This description excludes the fact that it's a Four Seasons hotel, owned by Mr. William Gates of King County, Washington, whose partner built this thing, Pale Alien. Earlier today, Saturday, March 26th, the Office of the Attorney General of Colombia released a statement indicating that a urine toxicological test performed by officials on Taylor Hawkins' body preliminarily found 10 types of substances, including THC, antidepressants, benzodiazepine, and opioids. In an official statement, the office said, quote, Colombia's National State Prosecution Service can confirm the following after the initial autopsy on the body of Taylor Hawkins. 1. That in the toxicological tests on Taylor Hawkins' urine, 10 types of substances were preliminarily found, including marijuana, tricyclic antidepressants, benzodiazepines, and opioids. 2. The National Institute of Forensic Medicine is continuing its medical studies to be able to completely clarify the facts that led to Taylor Hawkins' death. Number 3, Colombia's National State Prosecution Service will continue with its investigation and reveal the results obtained as a part of this investigation as appropriate. And there was also an issued statement by Bogota Mayor Claudia Lopez Hernandez, who wished all of the Foo Fighters fans, family, and friends our hugs and condolences. Hugs and condolences from an organized crime headquarters of the Western world, right? And the Bogota Metropolitan Police issued a statement in which they said, quote, according to those close to him, the death could be related to the consumption of narcotic substances, but they cautioned the cause of death has yet to be established. And of course, with the cause of death yet to be established, that also means that the manner of death has yet to be established. And of course, the real point here is it's 6 months and about 10 days after, and despite those calming and reassuring words from the national and local government in Bogota, no cause of death has been issued, no death certificate, no manner of death has been issued, and as far as I can tell, and as far as anyone can tell, no further factual or characteristic descriptions have been forthcoming from the Colombia government. So those assurances were basically false. Also adding to the intrigue, Luis Carlos Velez, the director of local radio station La FM, said that a police officer who entered Hawkins' hotel room had told prosecutors that he saw a, quote, cocaine-like, end quotation, white powder. Colombian authorities also found, quote, an empty beer can, an open bottle of vodka, a Coca-Cola bottle, and some other articles which are being analyzed. But he added that, quote, drug use has not been confirmed yet. So this is either via Mr. Velez, this reporter guy, director of a local radio station, or according to the authorities, this version is not entirely clear. Also, Colombian music and entertainment journalist Alejandro Marin tweeted, do not blame the country because Taylor died in Colombia if he died of an overdose. Don't be so stupid. So those are the basics. You know, the medics, medical, what we would call a 911 call was put out, and medical personnel responded in the 7 o'clock hour. This was very shortly before the band was to appear in a giant venue in Bogota. And of course, obviously, this is a problem because Mr. Hawkins' reputation was as a highly energetic drummer, and with the exception of a few anecdotes which are hard to substantiate as a matter of thorough fact, a very sober performer in this very strenuous type of performance that he gave. And his one drug drama that stands out is that he had ingested something accidentally. And that is to say, in London 20 or 21 years ago, somebody passed him a line apparently of some white powder, and without saying precisely these words, he indicated, I think on more than one occasion, that he thought it was something that he was accustomed to, which undoubtedly meant cocaine, but instead it turned out to be heroin. And because of this mistake, which is what he called it, he ended up in some sort of hospitalization for 2 weeks, which has been characterized as a 2-week coma, although without being an expert, that seems like a long time to overcome the effects of a drug overdose, which, you know, these days are fairly common. A 2-week coma following such, I believe, is not very common. So that may be an embellished story. They certainly played it out as an embellished story in discussing it year after year upon occasion. And, you know, this interview came up as significant. Maybe Maybe I should have done this early in the morning, right? So this interview came up quite a bit because it's recent, only last year. Rolling Stone interview with a Mr. Brian Hyatt, who says to him, and I believe this is audio only, he used to get pretty bad nerves as you used to get bad nerves. And to this, Hawkins responds, say, would you mind not smoking? I mean, you're violating all kinds of municipal codes.
I'm waiting for you to so I can take a picture.
You can take a picture without smoking your head off, man. You got your...
I will be smoking.
You're rocking a cigar there, dude, and it's really negatively affecting my health.
Go ahead and just take a picture. I'm going to get in front of you.
Go ahead, take a picture. Are you with the MoPOP?
Nope.
You're not with the MoPOP?
I'm from LA. I just saw
Oh, okay.
I'm flying back.
Okay.
I was actually enjoying whatever you're
Oh, that's
doing.
fine. It's just, that cigar could last about 30 minutes, right?
No, it's 10.
10 minutes, great. Anyway, so you have to be totally sober in order to, that being Mr. Hyatt. Mr. Hawkins, oh my God, dude, you see what I do? Yeah. Hyatt, certainly like weed affects your perception of, oh God, dude, I've made that mistake before on doing bong rips as a young guy when jamming in rehearsal, quote, back in the day in high school. Hawkins, you don't want to do that on stage. So fuck that shit. I don't want to go into all of that. I just lead a really healthy lifestyle. And then Hyatt asks him about the London incident, the overdose incident, and Hawkins responds, I don't want that to be the centerpiece of my story. So you can see how that goes. We'll edit that out in post, I suppose. So the whole thing was handled so expertly that you would be hard-pressed to find a seam anywhere in this seamless execution of Mr. Hawkins' demise. The first statement from the Foo Fighters was at 8 p.m. March 25th. I can't say that this is completely accurate, but that is apparently what appeared on the Twitter post. The Foo Fighters family is devastated by the tragic and untimely loss of Taylor Hawkins. Sounds like they lost him somewhere. His musical spirit and infectious laughter will live on with all of us forever. Our hearts go out to his wife, children, and family, and we ask that their privacy be treated with the utmost respect in this unimaginably difficult time, 8 p.m., March 25th. So in other words, already preemptively shaming any reporter who would want to get in touch with Mrs. Hawkins to ask her opinion about what was really going on, let's say, in the last months and the last days of his life. And then a few days later, on Tuesday, another statement was issued. It is with great sadness that Foo Fighters confirm the cancellation of all upcoming tour dates in light of the staggering loss of our brother, Taylor Hawkins, the band said. He continued, we're sorry for and share in the disappointment that we won't be seeing one another as planned. Instead, let's take the time to grieve, to heal, to pull our loved ones close, and to appreciate all the music and memories we've made together. With love, Foo Fighters. In other words, don't dwell on the ghastly end of Mr. Hawkins' life. Instead, remember that we gave you your money's worth when you paid big bucks to sit in a crowded stadium and experience one of our concerts. And most strangely, the widow did not issue a statement for quite some time. We'll get to that momentarily. But within a few days, Grohl and his bandmates made an emotional return to Los Angeles. And this was captured by at least one paparazzi, with Grohl in very grainy, distant footage, embracing a man believed to be their manager, John Silva, after touching down in the U.S. from Bogota, joined by bandmates Pat Smear, Chris Shiflett, and Rami Jaffe, as well as singer Samantha Sidley. John Silva, the longtime manager of the Foo Fighters, I think since the very beginning, and also key personnel in managing Nirvana. I believe it's generally considered that he was more important to the success of the band than his partner Goldberg, Danny Goldberg, whom we've discussed at length on numerous occasions. And really a mysterious guy. Looking around on the internet, I mean, I didn't spend hours on this, but over the years I've tried to look something up on this guy, and there's almost nothing there. I mean, I had to find some interview with a former roommate of his in his early days in Los Angeles, just to find out that he's apparently originally from Boston. No further details released. And, he has an SAM, Silva Artist Management, homepage, but apparently you need to sign in to get past the homepage. So there's a sign in for people who do business with him, and maybe entertainment industry media, but it's not only is it a blank page, it's like monochrome. You can almost not see that it's there. So Mr. Silva wants to be evidently, over the last 30 years or more, as mysterious as possible, and has succeeded in doing this. In fact, one thing that really stands out is that Silva is not an especially common name, and yet, Cobain's daughter was married rather famously or infamously for a couple of years to Isaiah Silva, and was rooming with him, his housemate, and boyfriend-girlfriend thingy for a couple of years beyond that. And I've never seen any reference to the idea that anyone has ever dared to ask the question, is this Isaiah Silva guy actually related to Mr. John Silva, the guy who's credited as being the manager that really helped make the band what they are? Meaning Nirvana and subsequently the Foo Fighters. Making them what they are as far as a commercial success. So that's never been answered, and it's you can see why, if this was a long-range series of predictable events, because the marriage didn't last long, and we haven't really done a monologue on this bit yet either, but it could not possibly have ended under uglier circumstances, with the split occurring and Mr. Isaiah Silva himself, a member of a rock band, holding on to that Martin guitar, quite famous as Kurt Cobain's possession, and the sole guitar he played in the MTV Unplugged session, I think, which is known as their best and most famous creation at MTV, perhaps above and beyond all others. Just that hour of acoustic music with Cobain and band. And the guitar eventually sold for $6 million, but the daughter and mother were trying to assert, Courtney Love of course, were trying to assert that he retained possession of it illegally upon the occasion of their separation and or divorce, and they wanted it back. And if that's not ugly enough, it gets plenty uglier, believe me. again, we should really go into this in detail and in accurate detail, but she sent over this very infamous goon who's a primary player in the ongoing and much examined mental health conservatorship of Britney Spears. And this is the guy that the family said was dealing her drugs and keeping her in some sort of hazy semi-psychiatric state over a long period of time. And he was accompanied by others, including an actor who had been featured in an hourly drama series. I think it was sort of a sci-fi horror drama. There may have been vampires involved. And so this crew shows up and claims to be LAPD, banging on the door saying, LAPD, give us Courtney Love's guitar back, dude. And then, if that's not bad enough, the story goes on, and this has been settled, finally taken out of court, I believe, during calendar 2022, this year. And this involved what was claimed by Mr. Silva to be an abduction of his very own person. And they took him for a ride and somehow were stopped by LAPD, who wrote it up as an alleged kidnapping, but did not somehow find enough evidence, apparently, to actually press this alleged kidnapping as a kidnapping or attempted murder, which is the contention that Mr. Silva put forward. And also, you know, in the very lengthy depositions that were filed in the case, it was alleged that for the first time that Courtney Love had related to someone that that is Wendy O'Connor, Kurt Cobain's mother, had related to someone that Courtney in some fairly direct way admitted to being a role in her husband's death to his mother, and that perhaps if Wendy didn't watch her step, she might be next. So obviously we should go over that in detail in one of these monologue thingies sometime soon. We were hoping to attend the trial, of course. I remember discussing this, I think, through email with Courtney's very own dad, the late Hank Harrison. And I think we signed off, or I signed off to him. I'd say chances are about 50-50 this goes to trial, and I'll be seeing you outside the Temple Street Courthouse for the Isaiah Silva versus Courtney Love trial. But who is Isaiah Silva? Is he related to John Silva, the highly mysterious, almost unseen Nirvana manager? He did take a little wave or something when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But beyond that, rarely photographed, apparently never quoted, and no biography available, at least as far as I've ever seen. And getting back to the death of Taylor Hawkins, in fact, there was a sampling of his last words of a sort, and these were on digital audio, apparently. And so this was released by an individual you may know as the organizer of Lollapalooza, and sometimes member, he's probably a founder of the Jane's Addiction band from the early 90s, Perry Farrell. His message on video was this: Taylor Hawkins died yesterday. He was my best friend. Little did he know, through this one fateful night, he would cement himself in the legends of music for all time. And that's what I think he deserves. The only sense I can make of the tragedy is to know that Taylor's now in heaven. He can hear us. What I'm going to do from this day forward is to try to make music that I think Taylor would really love. And then they cut to a clip of Hawkins and Farrell singing Bohemian Rhapsody in a street with a piano guy. And then the wife comes into frame. Apparently her name is Etsy, just like the e-commerce site, four letters, E-T-S-Y. And Etsy kind of lowers herself into the frame with a low-cut blouse on so that you get a few seconds of her chest without her face in the frame. It gives it a certain amateurishness, which is probably intentional. And she introduces this as the voicemail that she receives on Thursday, I believe she said, so this is the day before the death. From the hotel, she says. And the bit that they play has Taylor Hawkins saying, quote, "Take care of each other, and I'll take care of myself, and I'll see you in San Paulo. I love, love, love you. Sleep well." And, you know, it's very tempting to believe, you know, this isn't 1985. Most answering services are digital. They're a part of your cell phone package. They're obviously not carrying around a 30-year-old tape machine with them to take their calls. So there's no reason for him to have confined his comments to, 10 or 12 seconds starting at "take care of each other." There must have been more to that message. And given that Mr. Farrell is apparently really the principal organizer and more or less the CEO of this entire worldwide Lollapalooza enterprise, I'd like to hear what the rest of that message sounds like. Because, you know, I'll take care of myself, take care of each other, and I'll see you in San Paulo. Sleep well? I mean, these are the sort of statements, phrases that could be following up on an individual saying, you know, let's just fictionalize this a tiny bit. Hey, we thought we were going to get the whole floor of this hotel, but there's some sort of strange, overgrown cartel guys also with some rooms on our floor. I feel a little bit uneasy around cartel guys. The whole tour isn't going to be like this, is it? I mean, we tried to ask them if they were really booked into these rooms, and they weren't too polite, these 300-pound, muscle-bound cartel guys. Obviously, I'm extemporaneously fictionalizing here, but I'm saying if he had concerns about his safety, Farrell would have been the person that he called to address this, and you can see how it would be in Farrell's best interest to just excise all of that very important material and instead go with the sentimental send-off, right? But presumably these diligent Columbia State investigators did some kind of investigation of this matter. And they surely should have obtained that from Mr. Farrell, although, you know, by the time, I mean, obviously, he wasn't in the hotel, so they may have been out of the country at that point the night before he died, meaning they would have not been in Colombia at the time of the death, meaning that, of course, the Colombian authorities could request but not compel Mr. Farrell to turn over what may have been the very most important part of that audio tape message, that audio captured message. Digital, almost certainly. Digital and subject to digital manipulation is obviously what I'm saying. And a few days after their re-arrival and the warm embrace with apparently John Silva in Los Angeles, Grohl did make an appearance for the paparazzi. I believe it was captured by Fox, strangely enough, the Fox network. And this involved Grohl visiting his mother's home in Sherman Oaks on April 6th. looking exhausted, it was said, but in a casual outfit. Actually, he was wearing a t-shirt that said "Obsessed" in large letters across the top. And this was apparently a vintage rock and roll black shirt that was produced by the Obsessed, a DC area punk type band. So, you know, appropriate for Mr. Grohl to wear on some occasions, but on this particular occasion, it seems to indicate that somehow he was obsessed with something. Well, as a person who's had that word thrown around about him on numerous occasions, including in national media, you know, I find that most curious. What is he obsessed with? Getting to the truth? Evidently not, because Mr. Grohl has really yet to issue a word one about the circumstances of his death, other than publicist sculpted hazy sentimentality, of which he has apparently an absolutely endless supply, which we'll get to. And actually, the April 6th appearance by Mr. Grohl was after, 3 days after, a very curious appearance in so many ways of his daughter, Violet's 15 years old, according to what I'm seeing here. Perhaps she's had a birthday recently, but she's reported as being 15 or 16, but several years into her crooning career. And she and her sister Harper, 12, and Dave Grohl's wife Jordan Blum stepped out on Friday in all black at the Music Cares Person of the Year event honoring Joni Mitchell. The three women posed together on the red carpet at the MGM Grand Marquis Ballroom in Las Vegas, Nevada, days before the 64th Annual Grammy Awards. And that's kind of curious, isn't it? This is only April 3rd. This is really, I think, 8 days after the death of Mr. Hawkins. As far as grieving and healing and pulling our loved ones close, Mr. David Grohl, you know, supposedly his closest friend in the entire world, didn't need a whole lot of time to grieve, to heal, or to pull his loved ones close, because he sent the wife and teenage daughter and preteen daughter off to Vegas to do a show business appearance. And not any common show business appearance. This was not simply a red carpet appearance. This had young Ms. Grohl, Violet, age 15, singing a cover of Joni Mitchell's "Help Me" at the event. Not for paparazzi cameras, but a full-on presentation of the whole thing on stage at the MGM Grand Marquis Ballroom. "Help Me," Joni Mitchell's greatest hit, her first and only top 10 Billboard single, peaking at number 7 on the Hot 100, and also reaching number 1 on the Adult Contemporary chart. And the most curious thing about "Help Me," maybe some of you have guessed this already, but I suppose not, but undoubtedly a knowledgeable music buff like Mr. David Grohl would know this, perhaps his wife as well. "Help Me" is the companion piece to A Free Man in Paris. And, you know, look up A Free Man in Paris on Wikipedia, and you'll see the same thing that has been literally in the press for the last 50 years. I mean, I think I heard this story prior to the age of 10, or at least around the age of 10. I believe I was familiar with the tracks from a compilation record called Superstars of the 70s, right? And this record, of course, got huge airplay over and over again. When Joni Mitchell performed it live, it was done the same way as it was on the album Court and Spark, performed right up next to Help Me. In other words, the songs sound a whole lot alike. By putting these songs together on the album, they are inviting all those AM and FM DJs to play them at the same time. It's essentially the same song. Help me, I think I'm falling in love too fast. And, the other one is Free Man in Paris. I'd go back there tomorrow, but for the work I've taken on. Take two. I'd go back there tomorrow, but for the work I've taken on. And so this is not only a song of admiration, but a song of psychological examination by Ms. Mitchell of Mr. David Geffen, the person to whom the song's inspiration has been attributed for more than 50 years. In a July 1979 interview with Cameron Crowe for Rolling Stone, Mitchell recounted playing the newly completed Court and Spark LP to Bob Dylan, during which he fell asleep. She later suggested that Dylan was probably trying to be cute in front of label boss David Geffen, who was also present. So, given the circumstances of Cobain's death and the idea that there had to be coordinating parties keeping this all kosher vegan in the press, and those coordinating parties, meaning Gold Mountain Management and the Geffen personnel, they were all under the authority of David Geffen. So all of that corporate activity that went on above the Cobain situation in April of 1994 was all under the authority of Mr. David Geffen, to whom Violet Grohl sang a love song 8 days after the death of Taylor Hawkins, the second of Mr. Grohl's closest buddies in the music business to die. Kurt Cobain, 27 years later, Taylor Hawkins. So, highly ignorant of the background of the song is not something that I would credit Mr. Grohl or his wife or his daughter of being. Apparently they wanted to go out there in all black and have Violet sing a love song to David Geffen, which, believe me, nobody else in show business has ever done. I mean, not since Joni Mitchell. And, at least her Help Me, I'm Falling in Love Too Fast was up against this psychological examination of Geffen, which puts it in a completely different context. No indication that Ms. Grohl sang the other song as well. And to conclude this 55 minutes or so, Violet, why did he name his daughter Violet? This is only 15 years ago. 27 years ago, Courtney Love appeared on the Saturday Night Live Christmas program. This would have been late December 1994, and sang her highly offensive, to so many people, song Violet, or as she pronounces it, Violet. I wanted again, violence, more violence. So we're going to pause and pick up with the second hour momentarily. The time is 3:41, and the date is October 4th, 2022.